Isang magandang araw sa ating lahat. Ako nga pala si John Jerome F. Belem from Grade 10 Masikap. At sa video na ito, malalaman natin kung paano mag-assembling at disassembling ng isang computer. Sa video din ito, malalaman natin ang mga dapat gawing step by step upang ma-assembling at ma-disassembling ang isang computer. Disassembling the computer. Step 1. Unplugging. First of all, we have to do when we disassemble a computer is to unplug it. It includes keyboards, mouse, USB, power and other possible connected to the computer. We need to unplug everything for our safety. If you start assembly and you do not unplug it, you can be electrified or grounded. So it is better if we unplug first before we disassemble. Step 2. Opening the outer shell or case. After we unplug the possible connected to the computer, the next is opening the outer shell or case. To open it, we need to use a screwdriver. We must first disassemble the screws in the shell or case, and after disassemble the screws, you can now open the shell or case. Step 3. Removing the system pan. After we open the outer shell or case, the next one is removing the system pan. But before we removing the system pan, we first need to unplug it from the motherboard. After we unplug, we need two screwdrivers again to disassemble the screws attached to the system pan. After we unplug and disassemble the screws, we can now remove the system pan. Step 4. Removing the CPU pan. After we remove the system pan, the next one is removing the CPU pan. But before that, we first need to unplug the CPU pan from the motherboard. After we unplug, we need two screwdrivers again to disassemble the screws attached to the CPU pan. After we unplug and disassemble the screws, we can now remove the CPU pan. Step 5. Removing the power supply. After we remove the CPU pan, the next one is removing the power supply. You must first unplug all the wires connected to it. Step 6. Removing the CD or DVD drives. After we remove the power supply, the next one is removing the CD or DVD drives. But before that, you need to unplug the ADE or SATA cable from the drive. Once you unplug it, pull on the tab securing the drive in place. Then push it out from the inside. Step 7. Removing the hard disk drive. After we remove the CD or DVD drive, the next one is removing the hard disk drive. Once you've found the hard disk drive, disconnect the power supply cable from the back of it. Also disconnect the IDE or SATA cable, which is located next to the power connector. The hard drive is secured in place by the 4 screws. So using a screwdriver, we need to loosen the 4 screws. The same way of removing the CD or DVD drive. You pull on the tab, then slide the slot nut. Step 8. Removing the memory or RAM. After we remove the hard disk drive, the next one is removing the memory or RAM. Once you've located the memory you want to remove, you should notice 2 tabs on either side of the memory slot. Press each tab down and away from the memory slot. If done successfully, the memory should pop up, and once both tabs are away from the memory module, you can lift the memory out. Step 9. Removing the motherboard. After we remove the memory or RAM, the next or the last step is removing the motherboard. If you remove the motherboard, you need to disconnect all of the hardware connected to it. After you disconnect the various cables, you need to remove the screws that secure the motherboard to the computer case.